Solicitors and who represents the victims of Myles Bradbury. Morning, Renu.
Good morning.
So what is the point of a report like this?
I think after the conviction back in December and consequent restructuring of the sentence, families are still waiting for answers as to how this was allowed to happen. And we've also got to bear and that if it happens in one hospital, it can potentially happen in another. So it's important that the policy is looked at to prevent this ever happening again and to give those families answers.
So what kind of answers to what kind of questions do you hope to see?
One of the things that we were really concerned about was the scope of the abuse, how long did it go on for, the extent of it, how many children were involved, because up until you know how many people have suffered, it's very hard to look at policy and come to the conclusion of how that could be changed.
Okay, so what, you expect some kind of suggestion on maybe how many people were affected by Dr. Bradbury?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're looking for is clarity as to the extent of the children involved, and that's to start with. And only then can you really appreciate or try and understand how he was able to abuse that many.
And when you speak of possible changes to policy, do the families of the victims have in mind certain changes that they would like to see?
At the moment, the first thing we're looking at is transparency in the report to ascertain exactly what happened. And yes, I think they want much firmer policy to prevent any other children and any other vulnerable people actually being subjected to abuse of a similar nature.
So what kind of extra safeguards might be hoped for?
One of the things we've always said is chaperoning has been very, very important. Most hospitals do already do this as a matter of course, where children or vulnerable individuals of certain age or capacity are supervised whilst they are treated.
And did that not happen in the case of Myles Bradbury and his victims?
No, I don't. No, it wasn't. In Addenbrooke, it is true to say that parents were often in the rooms with their children, but if they don't understand the gravity or the type of illness necessarily, and many of them were very complex, they won't necessarily appreciate that the examinations being carried out by a doctor are unnecessary, and they are going to think it's legitimate treatment, whereas if it's being supervised by perhaps another, such offensive behaviour is likely to be called out.
I mean, to give them their credit, this is a report which Addenbrooke's hospital commissioned themselves, so this is clearly something they're taking very seriously.
We would hope that they take it seriously. We've always requested a public inquiry, therefore, which could compel witnesses to give evidence if necessary. However, we are hopeful that the report carried out by Verita, employed by Addenbrooke as an independent report, will do an equally good job.
Of course, there is a sense in which whatever rules you create, whatever policies you change, whatever safeguards you put in place, do you think you can ever really prevent those few people who are intent on committing crimes like this?
I think there's always the situation that every system may be fallible, and we accept that. However, there should be safeguards in place to ensure that if it's missed, it's caught in a net in another way. And I think it will be apparent from the report what suggestions they make, whether they've considered this thoroughly.
Do you feel that Myles Bradbury could have been stopped, Renu?
I think he could have been potentially stopped much earlier. I think it's disappointing that it's actually a child who's raised the alarm to their grandmother, and then the grandmother's brought it to the hospital's attention. I think it should have perhaps been caught much, much earlier. I mean, looking at it on a more practical level and taking the abuse out of it, doctors, just like any other profession, are liable to make mistakes and make errors in treatment. And it's important that every doctor has a supervision of some description, not just for the sake of the patient, but also for the doctor's assistance as well.
And you mentioned the possibility that, there could be other Myles Bradburys in other hospitals in this country, in other countries around the world. So the findings of today's report, they could have quite a wide-ranging impact, potentially.
Well, I think stricter guidelines prevents other individuals who are intent on committing such crimes from seeking to enter into such institutions with the main intention of abusing children. And I think the more strict the policy, the less likely they are to, one, get in, and two, succeed in their aim.
So you would like other hospitals to be paying attention to the findings of the report today?
Absolutely.
Renu, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. That's Renu Daly, who is from Hudgell Solicitors, and she represents some of the victims of Myles Bradbury.
BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
We've just ticked over to 16 minutes